יוצאת מוקדם זה לא משהו, זה פשוט איזושהי עבודה.
זה בסדר גמור. בסדר גמור. Okay, just a small introduction about myself. My name is Gil Graffi. I work together with Rabbi Edry since 2016. The way Rabbi Edry and I met is actually through teenage boys, because I was working with teenage boys. I actually started when I'm doing kilu with teenage boys for about 10 years. And when I moved to Florida, I had this guy live 2 or 3 doors down from me, and he started coming to my house on Shabbat, learning, bringing friends. And long story short, Rabbi Edry was also in the community. He moved in recently as well, and he got acquainted with Shlomo and other boys, and they told him about me, and they told me about him. So really, Shlomo and a couple of the guys are the matchmakers. So ever since then, I've been working together with Rabbi Edry with the teenage boys. So it's a big privilege, it's a big zechut. I work with them in the evening. I have a very close relationship with them. I'm sure I know some of your boys, and that's my relationship with Rabbi Edry. So I'm sure everybody understands that he's a tremendous asset to the whole community. And what I can say is, I don't think his role is replaceable, so hopefully I can just fill in some of the gap here as we discuss just a couple of small points in this week's Parsha, which is a little bit more last week but connected to this week as well. So last week's Parsha is Miketz, and next week's Parsha is Vaygash. I'm going to try to connect it to this week's Parsha is Vaygash. So something very interesting took place in last week's Parsha. It seems like Yaakov is doing something that he has done before, which at least appeared like a mistake, and it seems like that mistake is being repeated here. So to those who are familiar, bear with me as I go through the storyline, and those who are not, you'll see what's going to be as I go on. Yaakov sends his son to go get food from Mitzrayim because there's a famine. They need food. And that's the first go around. So he sends all of his boys with the exception of Binyamin. Once they get there, Yosef sees them, accuses them of spies. He takes Shimon as a prisoner because he doesn't believe them that they're there just for food. So what he does is, as he takes Shimon, he tells them, you want food for your family? Take a little bit of food. Bring back your other brother that you claim you actually have another brother. I don't believe you. Once I see that what you're saying is true, no problem, I'll give you food. Yosef says this to his brothers. Now, obviously they don't know that's Yosef. He has a beard, they sold him when he was 17, he looks very different. He also speaks a different language, because there was an interpreter between them. So sometimes you may say, well, it's their brother, maybe they can recognize the voice, right? There's actually a very interesting Gemara that said for a man to be married to a woman, he needs to be able to see her. So how can stay married, or even before, so how can a blind person get married? That's one of the questions. So we rely on the fact that the blind person can detect the voice and hear and understand, okay, this is my wife, I know. The same could be said for Yosef and his brothers. How come they didn't detect his voice? Because he spoke in a different language. Because there was an interpreter between them, so therefore that was a little different. So they weren't able to detect that. And so he sends them back and says, go back home, I want you to bring Binyamin. Now, they arrive home, and Yaakov sees Shimon is not there. And he's hurt, he's upset. Just a quick background. We call Yaakov the greatest of all the forefathers. He endured suffering and pain more than any other of the forefathers. There's a list of it, and he expresses it to his boys, right? Anyway from his brother Esav wanting to kill him on a regular basis, always trying to get him. Lavan cheating him. Then his son Yosef was lost. Then his daughter Dinah was assaulted. And now Shimon. I mean, just he's getting clobbered, one punch after another, and he's taking it, but it's very difficult for him. And they tell them, look, we need food, and we need to bring back Binyamin, because if we don't, he's not going to give us food. The viceroy of Egypt, again, nobody knows it's Yosef. So he disagrees. He says no. Then the oldest brother, Reuven, steps up to the plate. Reuven had leadership position, being that he's the older brother. He steps up to the plate and he says, Abba, I want you to give me Binyamin. I'm going to bring him back to you. I'm going to get into the detail a little bit of what he said. He denies his request. He says no. Yehuda, which is the fourth son, there is Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, comes after and says, Abba, I want you to give him to me. I guarantee that I'm going to bring him back. I'm his guarantor. What does Yaakov do? He grants him his request. Okay, no problem. It seems like Yaakov here is favoring, again, one son over the other. What's going on here? How come Yehuda gets this special permission and consideration, whereas Reuven does not? That's the first question. The second question is, just as some background, Binyamin is over the age of 30, married with 10 kids. Why is Yaakov scared to send a grown man such as Binyamin? What's the problem? He's not a 7-year-old kid. So we need to understand. As a mother, I can understand that when you're saying that. That your son could be 90 and you could be 120, and I can understand it's always your baby. I get that. In context, he's still a grown man. He's over the age of 30. 10 kids. I don't think anyone in this room has 10 kids. Maybe I'm wrong. That probably gives him another 20 years of life, just that in itself, I'm sure. Not taking chas v'shalom, adding. Now,
maybe because he's the son of Rachel, and you already lost Yosef.
You're saying good. These were his fears. I want to be able to, let's break this down together, and I want to discuss I think these are tremendous insights to try to understand kind of what transpired there in detail, because when you read, if you take the Torah and you read just Psukim, you're limited to just whatever the Psukim are. So Baruch Hashem, we have other commentators to fill in the gaps. And when they fill in the gaps, you begin to see a whole different story, a whole different reality that you might not have seen before. And that's where the critical insights come into play. So, start like this. We have to kind of analyze Yaakov's fear. Did he have real fear, or was it his imagination? But let's look at Yaakov's life, because Rashi explains that Yaakov had suspicion. He suspected that his sons, when they were with Yosef earlier, he doesn't know for sure, but he suspected that maybe they have sold him or they have killed him. He has no idea, but that's a suspicion. So right now, Yaakov has a tremendous amount of suspicion regarding his sons. He doesn't trust them. Well, why does he not trust them? It's his sons. Well, because they have a track record. What's their track record? If you closely look, when he sent Yosef to them, the first go-round before he was sold, he sends over Yosef and says, Yosef, go look, see how your brothers are doing. Yosef does not come back. Now, he sends them together with Shimon, and now Shimon does not come back. So anytime the brothers are doing something, there's a track record, there's a history of something bad always happened. Now let's look at specifically Binyamin. Everybody knows that Rachel was his favorite. He loved her more than anybody else. And where did she die? On the road. She died on the road. Now Yosef, where did he disappear? On the road. See, there's a pattern here. Rachel on the road, Yosef on the road, and you want me to send Binyamin on the road? I'm not doing that. So his suspicions were very legitimate. He was very concerned for him to send Binyamin. So this is where his position was. Comes Reuven, and he says something I cannot fully understand. I can tell you what the rabbis, what they say about it. They weren't too happy. In fact, Yaakov himself wasn't too happy. I'm going to read you what Reuven said to his father to try to convince him to send Binyamin back. This is what he tells him. ויאמר ראובן אל אביו לאמור את שני בניי תמית אם לא אביאנו אליך תנה אותו על ידי ואני אשיבנו אליך. What does Reuven say to his father, Yaakov? He says, if I don't bring back Binyamin, you can kill my two sons. That's an absurd statement. In fact, Rashi writes on this something even more astounding. He says, לא קיבל את דבריו של ראובן. Why? Because Rashi writes, בכור שוטה הוא זה. Shote means deranged or someone who's, something is not right? And he says, הוא אומר להמית בניו, and then Rashi poses the question, וכי בניו הם ולא בניי? What, you think your sons are your sons and they're not my sons? Because every grandparent feels like the children of his child is his own children. So what kind of response is that? I'll tell you a little bit, I'm going to the best of my ability, I'm going to try to describe Reuven's mindset here for a second. Why did Reuven feel the right to give over this to Yaakov? I'm the one who's going to get the job done for you. What was his mindset? If you remember in the storyline, there was one brother not involved, two, when Binyamin was young, but one brother that was also not involved in the sale of Yosef. Who was that? Reuven. When they sold Yosef, he wasn't there. In fact, Reuven saved his life. When they wanted to kill him, he said, no, put him in the pit. And the Torah testifies. He went back to try to save him. So now, he says, Abba, you don't trust them. I get it. I was not involved in the sale of Yosef. You can trust me. Because I didn't do any of this. You know you can trust me here. Yaakov, it's so funny because Yaakov, after he said what he said, he doesn't even respond to him. How do you know this? Because the pasuk says, "Vayomer lo yered beni imachem." My son will not go down with you guys. He doesn't even respond back to Reuven, which means his initial request and how he worded it was so ridiculous, and it wasn't even worth a response. But that's the position of Reuven. I was not involved. You can trust me, and since you can trust me, I'm going to bring him back. Still, didn't work. Who was involved in the sale of Yosef? In fact, whose idea was it? Yehuda. Which is even more mind-boggling. Because Yaakov knows Yehuda is the accepted leader of the brothers. He wasn't the oldest, but he commanded the most respect, and he earned it, and he got it. What's even more fascinating is you're the person that caused the sale and the grief to your father, and then he gives him back the right to go and bring back Binyamin. What's going on there? I'm going to go back to Reuven and then to Yehuda. What's the problem with Reuven? How come Yaakov does not trust him? If you go to Parashat Vayechi, which is in 2 weeks from now, so we're going to do 3 parashiyot, we were able to accomplish all 3. Is the following. Yaakov, on his deathbed, decides to give criticism to his sons. And it's very amazing because up until this point, he has not given criticism to his son Reuven. Reuven made a lot of mistakes. All of his sons made mistakes, but he's never criticized them once. Why is that? He was concerned that if he's going to criticize him early on, and as he grows older, he was concerned he's getting a lot of criticism, right? He's concerned that probably he's going to affect his self-esteem, his self-confidence. He was concerned, well, if I do this, he may go to my brother Esav. Esav is going to accept him with open arms. Not much criticism. So Yaakov always held his tongue until his deathbed. But when the time came, he hit him hard. I'm going to tell you what he wrote and what he said to him. Which means, he tells him, Reuven, you are unstable like water. Water is a very unstable thing. You don't know where it's going to go. Water is very impulsive. This is what he said to his son. Why? He did something very, very, very bizarre. What he did was, when Rachel died, he decided to take the bed from Rachel had a maidservant Bilhah. So Yaakov had a tent, and even though he had 4 wives, so what he did was he removed the bed of Bilhah after Rachel died. Rachel was like I said, she was the maidservant of Rachel, and then he took his mother's bed, Leah, and put it in Yaakov's tent. It's a very bizarre thing to do. So why did he do it? So the mothers here are going to appreciate this, because he wanted to protect the honor of his mother. Rachel was the main woman. I accept that. Everybody accepted that. But when she died, my mother Leah is right after. The maidservant doesn't come before my mother, so he protected her honor. He did this without anybody, but at the same time, it's your father's tent. He's also your father. You totally disregarded that. It's a very impulsive reaction, very impulsive behavior. You see here, what does he do when he comes to Yaakov? And he tells him, give me Binyamin. What does he say? If I don't bring him back, 2 of my sons you can kill. There's nothing more impulsive than that. So how could you trust someone like that? It's an outrageous statement. In fact, there's also a small revelation there. If you are willing to give up and sacrifice your son for this mission, you are not qualified to bring my son home because you don't realize the quality of your sons. How could you realize the quality of my son? I mean, that's a very clear thing. So he showed his cards. So it's a combination of being impulsive, combination of not realizing how he's treating his own son. It's just an outrageous statement. Totally denied him, totally rejected him, and it seems like it's the right thing to do. Now, comes Yehuda into the picture. Yehuda is a whole different reality, a whole different type of individual. And even though I'm saying the story, I promise you'll see insights that are related to everyday life here. As I'm going to conclude this, you'll see. Yehuda comes in, and when Reuven was rejected, the brothers turned to Yehuda. You're going to say something to Abba? He says, no. Abba's right. I understand him. Yehuda says, this is what Rashi writes. Nechake, we're going to wait until there's no more food left. Because after all, it's a famine. They brought back food. How long is the food going to last for? 2 months. It lasted for 2 months. After 2 months, all of a sudden, people have to eat. They have little babies. So now the negotiation is very different. When they first got there, there was a lot of food, right? Nobody was hungry. Now, 2 months have gone by. Yehuda is very patient, reserved, controlled. Now Yaakov says, we need food. Go to Mitzrayim. Now who's coming to who? Now Yaakov is going back to them, specifically. So now Yehuda now starts to speak. Now the negotiation is, now you're coming to me. So anytime in negotiation, whenever you go to someone first, it's typically not going to be favorable. But if someone comes to you, generally you're in a position of strength. So Yehuda waited for that opportunity. One leadership quality, patience. Then he says, Abba, I understand you. We can't go up there if we don't bring Binyamin. I'm not bringing Binyamin with you guys. Well, let's analyze this for a second, tells him Abba. If you don't bring us Binyamin, we're going to go up there and we're not going to get food. So if that's going to happen, it's a death sentence because we're all going to die of starvation. And then he says, if you bring me Binyamin, maybe something is going to happen, maybe not. But when you have safed, which is a doubt, and vadai, you go with the vadai over the safed. So it's guaranteed, in this case, it's really you want to take the opposite, but in this, it's guaranteed that we're going to die of starvation. So what do you want to do? Now remember, there's no food. And at this, now he's in a different position. I'm not going to go too much into detail of the storyline, but finally, what do you see from here? Yehuda concedes. Yaakov concedes to Yehuda and he says, fine, I'm going to bring you Binyamin. But before he conceded, Yehuda said one thing to him. And that was the thing that granted Yehuda his request to bring back Binyamin. You know what it was? I'm going to read it to you. He said the following. He said, Here. He says like this. ויאמר יהודה אל ישראל, אביו, שילחה הנער איתי, ונקום ונלך ונחיה ולא נמות, גם אנחנו וגם כפינו. And then he says to him the following. Send him with him, that way we can all live and we won't die. And then he says the following. אנוכי, מי? אערבנו מידי, תבקשנו אם לא הביאתיו אליך והצגתיו לפניך וחטאתי לך כל הימים. What does he do? He says, Abba, I give you a personal guarantee. A personal guarantee on me. I'm the only one responsible for him. Not my brothers, not my children, not my wife, nobody. Me. I am fully responsible to bring back Binyamin. You know, in real estate, you have loans. You want to go to the bank, you want to get a loan. There's something called a recourse loan and non-recourse loans. I'm not going to get into it in detail, but a person has a very good chance of getting a loan if he signs a recourse loan. What is a recourse loan? It means the bank can go after the person after, let's say for example, take this plaza. Someone says, I want to buy this plaza. You guys should have all the money to buy this plaza. Right? I want to buy this plaza. So usually the bank will use this as a collateral. You're not paying the mortgage, we're going to take it. That's called a non-recourse loan. A recourse loan means that we can go through other assets that you have. Now you begin to be personally liable. Because the banks know if that's the case, you'll do whatever it takes to make sure you don't default on your payments. It's a whole different level of obligation. It's a whole different level of commitment. You know what Yehuda said to him? Rashi explains, if I don't bring him back, I'm going to be a sinner my whole life. You can excommunicate me. I'm going to lose this world and the world to come. I mean, he went all out. He's committed to that mission and that mission only. And so, he comes and he tells them, bring him to me. You guys know how the story goes on from there. You know, Yosef plants the goblet inside Binyamin's sack. And now Binyamin is going to be, quote unquote, needs to be the slave. The Midrash explains that, I don't have time to go through it, but if I would give you just a couple of pages to read, I think everyone would shed a tear of what the exchange between Yosef and Yehuda, and what length Yehuda went to make sure that Binyamin is going to come back. And because it's very, very, very heartwarming, you see what that commitment did to him, how far he was willing to go. And that's this week's Parsha. But I want to say this is an incredible thing here. The reason Yaakov conceded to Yehuda is not because of fear, not because of punishment. Nothing deterred. There was no deterrence in this aspect. Meaning, there's no consequence, no negative consequence. What did Reuven say? You can kill both of my sons. We know it's a stupid statement. But that was a consequence. That was fear. That was something trying to deter him. That doesn't work. What works? If I'm personally responsible, if I'm personally obligated, that is the greatest level of guarantee. That's one of the ways, that's a very strong indication that you can trust somebody. That they're willing to fully commit, and there's no other motivations. There's nothing out there it's going to say, oh, I'm going to do this for reward, or I'm going to do this for any form of consequence. I am fully committed, it's me and nobody else. Do you know how tremendous that is with your children if you give them the impression that no punishments, no reward. If you say you're going to do something, I believe you and I trust you because I know you're capable. What message do you think Yaakov was sending his other sons? That I want you to be responsible, and I want you, when you say you're going to personally commit, I want you to personally commit to something. That when you think you can do something, you think you can accomplish something, the commitment is what's going to get it done. There's a fascinating commentator, his name is the Malbini. He writes something that was astounding to me. I have to give a lot of credit to Shlomo because I would not be able to do the shiur without him. We were working together. and he gave his outlook on the whole storyline, enabled us to really get the really amazing insights. And we saw the Mahim write the following. Yaakov tells his son, I think all of my zkuyot, all my merits have depleted. I don't know, Yaakov said this. But he tells his son, not you guys. The reason Yaakov thinks that because of all the troubles he had in his life. But he tells his son, not you guys. He says, this is the pasuk he tells, Ve'el Shaddai yiten lachem rahamim. Hashem should give you rahamim as you embark on this journey with Binyamin. And you know what Mahim writes? Because Yehuda took responsibility, because the brothers were supporting him, but he's the one who took responsibility, Hashem is going to give him siyata dishmaya. Hashem is going to provide him with assistance from the heavens, from the shamayim, that he should be successful. When you take responsibility like that, and you commit to it, you begin, even if you don't think you're worthy. There's a rabbi, his name is the Michtav Me'eliyahu. He writes, if a person wants to take on a role for the community, maybe opening up like a chesed program. Some of the Sholoshim student came to me, he's like, I want to open up, he said to me, a clothing store for hatanim and kalot, where they can go and they can purchase just for a few dollars, maybe $10, $15, $20, those that are struggling, so they have the feeling that they're able to purchase something and get it for free, so they're not embarrassed. But like a chesed thing, you see that I was just so amazed. He comes to me and he tells me that. And so Rav Disler writes, even if you're not worthy, and you really are not worthy, but you take on the role that nobody's willing to take on, you will have help from Hashemayim like never you've seen before. Anytime you commit to something, anytime you have a personal commitment, and by the way, there's no greater, the audience that's going to see it more than anybody are your children, by far. They say when you say you're going to do something and you follow through with it, they have courtside seats, they see it, they observe it. When we try to give any excuse or rationalize why we did something, they see it, they observe it, they internalize it. I'll tell you something that happened with my daughter. It was yesterday. I was sitting down, I was reading, and I had a cup. I made hot chocolate. So I almost finished it. I said, Avigai, can you just put it on the counter? And she said to me, she's very respectful, but she has a way of words. She says, Abba, you do it yourself. I didn't say anything. I didn't. And I thought hard about it. And then it hit me. In the last 3 months, she has a tendency where sometimes she likes to be served, to do things. She's not even 6. And I thought hard about it, and I'm trying to train her, no, you can do things yourself in the last 3 months. And then it hit me. She was right. I can't do it myself. Why am I asking her? We don't even realize the smallest things that the small interactions, because they're a sponge and they observe everything. So anytime we commit to something, anytime we say we're going to do it, there's no stronger message we send to our children. And it's true also in marriage. It's true in business relationships, because it's your word. Your word is your value, it's your reputation. Right? There's nothing greater than I'm going to do it, period. I don't need any other, any other reward, or you don't have to incentivize me. That is the most empowering thing you can do, and that's why Yaakov agreed to sending it with Yehuda. I think it's a tremendous lesson moving forward. We can take this, and I think for ourselves, we empower ourselves, we give our self-confidence will increase. It's true with weight. If someone's trying to lose weight, no, I'm done, I'm not having that. That's it. Smoking. I'm not a smoker. Not that I'm trying to quit, I'm not a smoker. I'm defining myself as not a smoker. I think it's a tremendous lesson, and that's why ultimately Yaakov agreed to give it to Yehuda and not to his son Yehuda.
Thank you so much.